Hello, everyone. Hi, I am Coach Chanel, and this is to tell you more about my business, Power Coaching, and my brand as Coach Chanel. I have years of experience as a coach, and I am trained in energy leadership coaching, and I'm super passionate about journeying with my clients towards their best selves. So if you work with me over the span of some months, we're going to dig into thoughts and belief systems. We're going to figure out how your actions are serving you and impacting you, and we're going to reframe all of that. There are some universal beliefs that I lend to my clients so that you can start thinking differently and more in a way that is going to fully embrace and accept all of who you are. So we reframe you in the center of your life and you in the center of what is important and valuable and good to you. And then I share a bunch of different thoughts and perspectives along the way. I help my clients with any issues, but especially like, things around career, things around personal life and dating and relationships. And one thing I've really enjoyed has been coaching women, and specifically women of color. And so I have brought on some of my clients to talk with me about their experience with coaching. This is definitely not scripted. They do know what I'm going to ask, but I don't know their answers, and so I'm encouraging them to speak freely and honestly. And I'm going to bring them to the stage now. So welcome, Cindy and Ebony. So both of you, I will actually ask you to introduce yourself a little bit for anyone who's unfamiliar with what you guys do. So Cindy, you want to go first? Just tell us a little bit, name, what city you're in, and maybe career path.
Yes, so Cindy with an S. City, I'm in Watertown, but nobody knows where that is, so let's say Boston, Massachusetts. And career that I'm in, so I'm currently in biotech. So,
awesome. And then what are you studying?
Background. I'm getting my MBA also on the side. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then Ebony, what about you?
Hi, my name is Ebony. I am from Augusta, Georgia. I am an aspiring motivational speaker. I have my own business where it is specializing in edge care for your edges, and I also sell T-shirts. So that is pretty much what I'm up to. I'm also on social media too. So that's pretty much what I'm doing.
I'll make sure to link to your stuff so that people can find you guys. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's get into the questions. So the first question was, what were your thoughts or impressions of coaching before you got a coach?
So I think my impression was kind of it's all hoo-ha, this is very left, new age stuff, get a coach, it's unaffordable, not for me. So I really didn't see that as being something that was for me. Honestly, I guess I had kind of a negative perception of it. But yeah, not anymore. So
awesome.
We're kind of similar. I feel like for me, I've always viewed coaching as very shallow. Just kind of you can do it, you got this, and that's it. I never really thought about coaching past an actual coach, like an actual sports coach. It's kind of what I saw them on the same playing field as. So I really didn't have much thought beyond it being a very shallow thing. I didn't really think it was expensive or anything. I just kind of thought if I had to choose between therapy and getting coaching, I would choose therapy because that has more of a substance to it that to me coaching didn't have. So when I was first starting out, or before I knew about coaching, before I got coaching, I definitely thought it was a very shallow thing that was kind of a waste of time because why get coaching when you can get therapy instead? That's kind of how I viewed it. So that's where I started out.
Awesome.
That's not where I am anymore either.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I think that's so helpful because I think sometimes people, I thought this before I was a coach, why would I get roped into that, right? Because it seems gimmicky, but the only real way is to sit down and chat with the coach. And then I think after one or two intro sessions, because coaches usually offer that first free hour so you get the idea. After that, you have a different impression. But I do think that is I've seen life coaching on a reality show, right? I haven't seen it in real life. But speaking of what you said, Ebony, so how would you compare your therapy experiences and your coaching experiences, or what would you want someone to know if they are still conflating the two?
Well, this is probably akin to just your type of style of coaching, but for me, your style of coaching was way more, it was much deeper to me than therapy was. For me, therapy was I vent about my issues. We talk through the issues and come up with some possible solutions. I go about my business. For you, it was more so you were helping me to view my issues in a different perspective to help me no longer see it as an issue. So the troubleshooting was different, very, very different. My therapists have never asked me, what am I grateful for? I have never been asked that. So I know, like, our first session when I was venting to you and I finished venting, you were like, okay, so what are you grateful for? And I was like, I don't know. You know, it definitely threw me because I'm not used to that. So I will definitely say that your style of coaching got me to realize that there's a different way to fix problems. Instead of looking at it as a problem, change the way you look at it. Like, I never thought about it prior to that. So therapy was very straight to the point. There's a problem, we'll talk about it, we'll fix it, that's it, and that's just pretty much it. But you just brought a whole different perspective to fixing issues that I had not heard of before. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I was going to say I agree as well. I've also been involved in therapy, and I think Chanel's approach was like a breath of fresh air because I think I have that issue too where I'll bring an issue to my therapist and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm thinking about, and then we'll like talk about certain things, but I'm like, okay, that's not really what I wanted to get out of this. And that's one thing that I also appreciate is like when we talk, you're like, okay, so what do you want to get out of this? It's like, wow, yeah, thank you. And then like reframing it, whatever I came in with, I like looked at it completely different. And I have an example we can get into later, but yeah.
Oh, go for it. Let's just freeform it. We know where the questions are going to go, but go for it.
Okay, so for example, so my partner right now is in a different country. So he chose to go to a different country, and that was very hard for me in the beginning. I mean, it's not easy still, but so I also have I discovered my hypochondriac during the pandemic, which is not a good time to discover that. I mean, I already kind of knew, but anyway, so I like mentioned to Chanel in one of our sessions, like, I'm freaking out, and like also I'm like alone, and like, you know, all these things. And she was like, well, how do you want to feel? And I was like, I feel like that changed the way that I completely saw like my anxiety about things, because I was like, I then it then opened the door to how, and I had kind of thought about this before, like how I like basically I will have like physical sensations because of the emotions that I'm feeling, and it was just like liberating to be like, I'm gonna choose to try to feel different. And it's hard as heck, like it's so freaking hard.
Definitely.
But I think it was just like very enlightening, and just like little things like that you're like, wow, I would have never thought about that. It's like she has great perspective.
Thank you.
Excellent perspective. You are absolutely right. I feel that.
It's so funny because I remember one time, if I can share, Sindy was freaking out about COVID, and I was like, okay, so you're going to die tomorrow. What you going to do with today? And she was like, I don't say that. And I was like, I'm not trying to speak negatively. I'm just saying, if this is a fear, what are we going to do? And she was like, okay, I'll talk to you later. I was like, okay. You know? But, you know, like the idea behind it is just like we have these fears that we don't want to make real. But that makes the fear bigger and a boogeyman, and like there's no way to wrap our arms around what's going on because we're just like, because COVID hypochondria is so real. Like, and then this idea that you're so worried about the potential of being sick, and you don't have a symptom yet, right? And so anyway, that's just funny because I thought that's where you're gonna go with it, but thank you for that.
That was another one where I was like, oh, no, I don't want to think about that.
Your therapist would never say that to you.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. You need to take it to that level to get us to see sometimes how silly the fear can be. Like, I've never had someone challenge my fears in that way. So even though it's like hyperbole, it's exaggerated, it's still effective. You know, it's still effective. So yeah.
Cool. I'm so glad we got deeper into that. That's great. Thank you guys. So wanted to ask the next question, which is, do you think that, so you guys have only had one coach before, me, happened to be a Black woman. Do you think that the race and gender identity of your coach like made a difference or an impact on your experience?
Yes, for sure. I mean, me personally, I feel like it's just different. You can't. I mean, it's like I've had therapists. I mean, not that you're a therapist, but like it's just different. You just can't relate. You can't talk about the same things when you have an issue. You can't really like discuss the same things. And I'm not actually sure if you and I really talked a lot. I think maybe briefly, but that's something that we can in the future when hit you up again. But I think it's just different. It's like it's a part of who you are, and for you to be with someone that is exploring the deepest parts of you and not be able to touch on that is like you're kind of doing a disservice to yourself if you're not gonna go with someone who's like you.
Yeah, just to jump in before you go, Ebony, I think for you, Cindy, I didn't verbalize it as much, but the stuff we would talk about around career and corporate, like, felt very real to me because I felt it and experienced it. So it's like I'm coaching you through it because I'm like, I know this shit can suck. Like, it feels like it's all kind of stacked against you, and having that experience, I think helped me because I'm not like, just pull up your bootstraps and you can do it. It's like, no, like, let's really talk about how this doesn't feel good, like something's not right here, so anyway, sorry, go ahead if you had something to say.
I agree, it does matter. I feel like representation definitely matters. It's very crucial. It does play a huge role. I've in the past I've had both for women, but I've had one white woman who's a therapist and I had a black woman who's a therapist, and both of them, there was a disconnect because the white woman, of course, she was white, so there was the colloquialisms I use, the AAVE, she didn't understand it. So it's like I'm having to like code switch in my therapy session to be able to be myself. And like it really created a block where I didn't feel comfortable to even tell her everything about me because she didn't even get the simplest things to me. So it automatically created a block for me to not want to tell her everything. So that was one setback. Then I did get a black woman who's a therapist. However, she was very religious. I don't believe in religion. And so because of that, it created another block because all of her advice dated back to religion and something in the Bible. And it was like, this is not how I think. This is not how I even view spirituality and religion to begin with. So even then there was a block because we were speaking different languages and she did her therapy through her religious practices. So it wasn't even separate. It was all together. So I feel like not only does race and gender matter, but even religious beliefs matters too, because if someone is coaching from a spiritual or religious standpoint and you're not religious, that isn't really going to help you either. So I felt the need to mention the religious aspect because it plays a bigger role than I thought it would. I didn't think it'd be a big deal because we had different religious beliefs, but because she did her job through her religion, it definitely caused a wedge. So for you, we seem to be more on the same path as far as spirituality goes. And so that really helped me to kind of relax even more because, you're viewing spirituality and a higher being the kind of the same way that I am. So not only did you look like me and can relate to my experiences, but you also believe the same way that I do. So maybe even more comfortable to be able to tell you how I felt about things without the fear of being judged or misunderstood. So yeah.
Wow, that's so real. Oh, thank you for adding that because I hadn't even thought about like advertising in that way. I think about I've had that experience with being therapized by someone who like, I'm okay with kind of this idea of a higher being. But what was interesting was like if you bring anything else into it, then yeah, it is almost like, okay, are you viewing, if I'm telling you I did something wrong, are you viewing that from the lens of you shouldn't have sex. You shouldn't date. You wouldn't have been in this position if you weren't lusting after a man, or you wouldn't do this if you were just listening to what God told, so it's like there's, it can trigger your own shame if you have shame attached to religion when someone else is coming from a religious perspective. But I would say that like if my coaching does have a spiritual bend to it only because my training was in energy leadership. And whenever you're talking about energy, you get a little bit, woo-woo. And a term I heard recently that I'm not claiming it for myself, but I think it helps describe my coaching is more of like an omnism, which is this idea of like there's some commonalities to all the religions and someone who believes in that. And so I think that you can be any religion, and I will respect your religion, coach you. Like I won't coach you against, I won't coach you to eat the wrong meat or do the wrong, I won't get into that, but there definitely won't be any shame and any type of attachments to it. And I do think that probably will lose me people who are like very intent on living by the Bible, and that's great because there's a coach out there who will teach you in a Christ-like way, and in His name. That's not me, and I think going in that lane is more. It gives it's a better fit. So anyway, I think that thank you. That is a great point. I wouldn't even have thought about. Cool. Okay, this is going great. Okay, so okay, we're actually already halfway through. So I wanted to ask you guys about I'll switch the order. So the value of coaching. So Sindy, you brought up in the beginning a little bit about is this even worth the money? Can I pay for this? Like that, like we get these ideas before we have a price in our head, and then we kind of create like a bar of like I don't think I need blank. So if blank costs this much, then I'm not doing it. Coaching, therapy, massage, anything. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about how much you were willing to pay before you got coaching? How did you feel about the price when I named it to you? And then how would you talk about the value of it now that like you're paid the money wherever you are in your payment process? Like how do you feel about the value compared to before and now?
I know for me, prior to getting coaching, I didn't think coaching was expensive because to me it was shallow. Because this is not a deep thing, But then after we had our first session, and I knew that I was trying to launch a business, but I knew I had to get uncomfortable and get out of my comfort zone to access me that could launch the business. And so when we had our first session, you were asking me questions and you were having me think about things already in a different way that I was like, no, I need that. I can't just stop because I need more. And so when you told me the price and everything, of course to me it was expensive because prior to I was thinking it was cheap, but I wasn't deterred. It wasn't like oh no, it was like cool. Can I do a payment plan? Can I do an install? What can I do to work this out? Because I knew I immediately saw the value. Even though I didn't know what the future held as far as what your coaching entailed, but I knew that, like, you were going to challenge me to think outside the box in a way that I had not experienced before. So now that I'm at the end of it and I'm having gone through all the coaching and everything, it's like that's valuable. This is valuable work that you really can't put a price on because the way you're literally reprogramming your brain. And you need help doing that because you think the certain way and you need someone else to come in and help you think a different way. You can do it on your own to an extent, but you need someone else that has criteria and education to help you go all the way. And I feel like that should be compensated. That should be compensated well because this is really crucial, life-changing work that we were doing. I won't be the same person. And I feel like that shouldn't be a cheap price, So I felt like at the beginning, I felt like it was a great price, and now I feel it even more because now I see just how lucrative that work was and how it's going to pay off for years to come. This was not just a quick fix. This was really fundamental, life-changing work that deserves to be compensated well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with everything that you said. I feel like it kind of feels like, and I kind of understand now why like some people have coaches for like years because it's kind of like what you said. You are trying to change how you've been functioning for however many X years until you find Chanel. It's like, I mean, for me, okay, I guess in terms of the pricing, for me, I think at first I was like, dang, like okay, but after we had our first call, I was like, dang, like. This is exactly like I feel like I do need this. Like it was just like the way that you approached what we even talked about. I think it was my idea of fear, and that's like a recurring theme that I think about. And I think you can try to do some of this work on your own, but there gets to a certain level where like you're unless you're like really spending all of your time like looking up different philosophies or like getting some kind of different views of how you're thinking, it's kind of really hard to do it on your own because I was trying to do it on my own and like with a therapist, but I was still running into the same issues. So I feel like the value is like who you are now versus who you want to be. So I mean, this is kind of like from my economics class, and it's kind of like, what is it costing you to stay where you are?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what you need to think about. It's like, it's going to be worth where you're trying to be. And whether that's like for the rest of your life or until you get it together, and like it might take you a while to get it together, and that's okay. So I don't know. That's just my take.
That's both fantastic, honest answers. Thank you so much for that. That is so great to hear. I also, the metaphor that I thought of as you two were talking was like around maybe like exercise, right? Like you can say I never want to exercise in my life, have a happy life. You can say I want to exercise, and you're going to try different methods. So it's like you don't necessarily you know, you might have a trainer for a little bit, then you might go back to exercising on your own. But I don't, and some people say, I never need a trainer. I can look this up online. But it's like, some people have a trainer and see the results sooner because they have a trainer, and because like there's a psychological effect to saying, this is what I'm paying for, this is what I'm getting, I'm going to put something into it. Like, you know what I mean? Like my trainer's going to stand there and make sure I get those knees up, or make sure I, you know, they're not going to let me get off the machine early. And so again, it's like, what does it cost to you? Like, anything can be done on your own, but can it be done well? Can it be done in the time frame you wanted to? Can it be done before you miss another opportunity? And I also think that there's something that comes out of it that's not just about money, right? It's like the intangible of like being, you know, I impact my clients, they impact me. So I always learn something, and this is getting out of money and just value, but I always learn something. Like I'll find that what'll resonate for me when I'm coaching is like, oh shoot, I'm struggling with that too, you know, or like, oh, I'm learning about that too. And I feel like it's almost a synchronicity of, I'll always feel like I can share something I've learned for myself with my client, not just like this kind of objective way of it being like, you know, I have truly been there. And it, you know, I can't get into all the details of my own personal life in the call, but I really hope that people trust me when I feel like, I get it, girl. You're going through this thing with this person, or, you know, this job is treating you like that. I've been there. And so, in terms of why I know I'm bringing value is not just my education and training, which we've mentioned, but it's because of the life experience that I've been fortunate to have to be able to turn around and say, why did I go through that shit? And whenever I see it happen for another person, it really, it becomes clear. My next question would be just overall, like in small or big ways, have you seen the impact of coaching? Because both of you now are at least a few weeks to a month out of coaching. Cindy, it's been a little bit longer for you. So have you seen it show up in any way?
Yes, I can start. I guess one thing that just popped into my mind is that I'm thinking about some of the things that I learned and revisiting some of those. And I actually have like my journal over there with like, I want to type up some of the things we talked about, because I feel like they're actual tangible things that I can do. Like, So, I mean, we discussed that I'm a hoarder, low-key. I'm getting better.
I don't think you are, but you.
I know, I really am not. It's the Amazon packages. But a little bit. So what I've started to do is one of the things you told me, which is like a super no-brainer and I'd seen before, but you were like, set a timer to clean 10 minutes. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? Like, that's so smart. Like, so I'm like, things like that, and just things about thinking about, like, for example, thinking like, do you feel lonely because you actually think it's sad? Or like, do you feel sad because you actually think being lonely is sad? Or like just exploring like, what is the emotion, and am I feeling that way because I'm really feeling that way, or because of something else that I think I should be feeling? So yeah, a lot of great tools.
I agree. I think for me, the biggest thing that I have taken away from our coaching sessions is that I feel a lot closer to myself. I know when we first started, I was very disconnected. Like there was a lot of lack of emotion and empathy for myself towards myself. And so over time, and now that I've kind of been out of it, I'm learning to work with me and not try to force me to do things or be my worst critic. Like, I'm a lot kinder to myself.
Yeah.
If I'm having a frustrating day, instead of me just trying to get over it and suppress my emotions, I stop. Do I need to journal? Do you need to get a smoothie? Like, what's going on? What do you need to make you feel better right now? Like, what can we do to work with you? You know, I'm prioritizing myself a whole lot more. I just see an overall improvement in doing myself and doing things that make me happy. That's one thing. I also have improved in assessing my emotions, like you said, Cindy, trying to figure out, why do we feel this way? Is there anything underneath that's causing this emotion, and what's really going on? That's a big thing, because for a long time I wouldn't assess my emotions. I'd just be mad and didn't know why I was mad. I'd be sad, didn't know why I was sad. So that's another thing. Also, letting myself feel my emotions. That's been a really, really big thing for me. No longer suppressing them and just letting them just come on out. If I got to cry, I just got to go ahead and cry. It's okay, you know. Giving myself grace to just not always be okay. And that's not always easy. Sometimes I don't want to be upset. Sometimes I just want to go ahead and get over it, but my body has to do its thing, you know. So learning to respect myself and work with me and not try to force me has been, I think, the biggest takeaway from our sessions. That and just getting closer to myself. I feel more in tune with me. I was very out of tune. My intuition is stronger now. My gut instincts are much stronger. I trust myself more. I feel more secure that if I have a weird feeling about something, it's there for a reason. I'm not feeling that weird feeling because for nothing, you know. I wouldn't trust that before. So now I'm more likely to trust me before I trust somebody else, as far as judgment goes, you know. So I've definitely seen a lot of improvement on how I treat myself and how I view myself and how I view the world, basically, because of our sessions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add one last thing, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I feel like it is related to the fact of coaching and me trying to, I'm also concurrently in therapy too, so it's definitely, like, I'm trying to get it together, like I said. I'm getting it together. Let's say that. See? Another
It's
aspect.
together. You're just trying to experience it as together, but you're you're
okay.
good.
See? Thank you. But, so I actually started, like, I'm not really sure how it happened, but I was, like, noticing I was getting anxious, and just the pausing and thinking, like, why am I getting anxious, and I feel like I'm not eating enough, that thought process was strengthened while working with Chanel, just thinking that, like, also my therapist was like, you also need to think about this, like anxiety in general, but I think the fact of being, like, actually trying to use tools that I have, like journaling. So I was journaling and I was, like, noticing, damn, I'm really not eating enough. So then that motivated me to hire a nutritionist, because I'm like, anxiety is making me not eat enough, and because I value myself and I know that I have inherent worth, I should probably try to figure that out and make sure I'm eating enough.
I like that. Your ability, the way that you ask questions and the way that you are able to get us to shift our focus elsewhere, that is another big takeaway for me, is that I'm learning to shift my focus elsewhere, because I can be real good at harping on the negative, and that's all I'm looking at, and I'm just zoning in on that. And so now, whenever I catch myself doing it, I make myself stop and say, okay, what else is in the room? There's more than just this one little piece of furniture. There's more to the room than that. So what else can we look at? And that really has tremendously helped my, I guess, depression, my wallowing, any kind of negative emotions I've been dealing with in the past. They just kind of fester and become this really vicious cycle. The cycle doesn't exist anymore, because if I feel myself start to go down that path, I have tools. What am I grateful for? Let's journal. There are things that I have now that I can do that work that I didn't have before. So it's kind of like I have the solutions to solve the problems that I didn't have prior to. So, like, now when the problems arise, they don't last long. They're not as intense, and it subsides before I know it. So I'm not even really, there isn't anything to fester about or let marinate, because I've already gotten rid of it. So I will say the way that you were able to hear our issues and get us to reshift our focus, that's another, like, that's like top 3 things I've learned, because that perspective, I didn't realize how powerful perspective is, and how just simply looking at it in a different way or looking at something else is just, it changes the whole thing. So yeah, I would say that too.
Dope. Those are great takeaways. I love hearing that. You know, when we do our last session, like, we do like some recapping, but I feel like the sitting with it and seeing what actually sticks is really valuable feedback. So I'm really glad to hear that anything sticks, but then specifically that those foundational shifts happen, because that is what I believe that I'm able to provide. So hearing that feedback is like so, so wonderful on my end. Cool. Okay, so the last question is going to be, who would you recommend coaching to? Who do you think is a good candidate?
Someone who wants to improve themselves and question. I mean, if you've been thinking like, damn, I really don't like how I've been feeling or thinking, is there a different way that I can think about things? And you want help from someone in how you're going to go about that, then you should probably reach out to Chanel. Because it's like, yeah, you can go on YouTube and listen to all these different, like philosophy, which is what I used to do. I'd be like, go on YouTube and let me see, how can I try to think about this differently? And it's different when you're actually speaking to someone, and it also feels like you're on this path with someone who actually wants to see you do better. It's not just like, I mean, this is something that I kind of don't like about therapy. I mean, not so much with my therapist now, but my therapist before, it's like, all right, time's up, see you next week. And it's like, but what did we actually get to?
They will stop you.
Yeah, so
Dang.
for anyone that really wants to kind of make progress on their internal self, do some of the deep work within yourself and explore some of the things that you might not even think were an issue. And I mean, you might even talk about things that you didn't even think you were going to talk about, but it might come up just because of what you're feeling that day. So
Yeah, that happens a lot. Like that question of what do you want to work on? Sometimes it's like, huh. And then we always find something.
yeah.
I love that question. I think for me, of course, the easy answer is everybody, but no, because not everyone's ready to actually do the work. I would definitely agree with what you said, Cindy, but I also feel like it's for people who have this idea of who they want to be in their head, but they have no idea how to get there. And they're essentially stuck. They know who they want to be. They know what they need to do to get it, but they just don't really know how to apply it and make it reality. Because that's the category I fell under. People who have tried therapy and it wasn't fully satisfying to them and they didn't really understand why. I would suggest coaching, because maybe you do need someone to talk to, but you need the conversation to be a little bit different than what it was in therapy. Those were the top two that came to my head off rip, but I will also say women. Genuinely, women should do coaching and minority women, just because our society, the way our society is ran, our society doesn't want you to be empowered. They don't want you to know your own power and your own worth and your full capacity. So like, since from childhood on up, we are literally taught in society and in the home to not fully know our value and our worth and our power. And so I feel like with coaching, well, at least your coaching, it shows you that you showed me how to, where my power was. I didn't know I had power. Like that wasn't a concept to me that I'm powerful. I didn't understand it at first. And so I feel like a lot of women don't realize just how powerful we are and how we dictate what happens. Things don't move through us, we move through it, and we don't know that at first. And so I feel like for women, coaching would be phenomenal because it gets us to recognize that you are a whole person, you take up space. We're not taught these things, So I would target women just because, societally speaking, and especially in America, we're just not shown enough examples and we're not taught enough to take up space and what that looks like, to draw boundaries and what it looks like. We're not shown that enough. So I would also say women.
I definitely agree with that. Definitely women.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's funny because I think that resonates with Cindy too, because we talked a lot about power in coaching and like even what the discomfort with the label of being powerful, right? And what being powerful even meant growing up. Like, so what does it mean for me today to feel powerful? And then I think one other thing that I can point out about coaching is sometimes we'll bring up a concept or an idea like being powerful, and it might not feel right that first time we talk about it, So we'll inch our way back into it if that's the thing that we ultimately want, but just have like some blocks or some walls or even like real life obstacles in front of us stopping us from being able to get there. So wow, I mean, I cannot thank you two enough. Like, I am bursting and beaming just hearing that there was a positive impact thank you two so much for doing this, for helping me out to advertise M4H, Power Coaching, Coach Chanel, like all my different brands all in one house. I am so grateful for you two as clients, and I will make sure to post ways that people can support your business, Eboni, and Cindy, if you want me to post your socials, I'll put those in there to get some followers. And also hopefully some MBA contacts if you want, anybody in biotech. And so if you guys have any other last comments or thoughts or anything you want to plug for yourself?
I would just say that you have got to get coaching from Chanel, period. Like, if you're looking to access a different part of who you are and you're looking to really tap into your potential and what you know you can be, get coaching from Chanel. She's going to tap into it. It's uncomfortable at times, but it is definitely worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I would definitely agree also. I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable because you're just going to get to the parts of yourself that don't want to be uncovered. But be ready for that because that's what you're going to sign up for. I mean, you don't have to get there if you don't want to. But just kidding, Chanel's probably going to push you there because she wants you to do better.
Gonna happen.
Yeah. I guess no personal business to plug yet, but maybe in the future.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening along, for watching, for paying attention. I would love to be a partner with you in your journey to your best self. So give Coach Chanel a chance so we can have a chat. We can talk for 1 hour, and it's going to be free. It's going to be exploratory. You can learn more about coaching. I can learn more about you and see if we're a good fit, and we can go from there. I want to thank Cindy and Eboni again for their fantastic, honest conversation and their time. Check out my new website, www.chanelcreating.com. That's where you can find out more about Coach Chanel and my coaching company as well as my creative endeavors. Thank you.